everyone, welcome back. This is video 4. We are starting a two-part deep dive into React hooks. Today we cover useState, useEffect, and useRef. So 22 questions, state answers, simple explanations. In the video 5, we will finish with use memo, use callback, react.memo, and the rest of the hooks. Let's get started. How does useState actually work? So useState give you two things, the current value and a function to change it. React keep the actual value stored internally, not the component itself. When you call the setter, React re-renders the component with the new value. That's it, simple, but it's a base for everything else we will cover today. Why doesn't state update immediately after calling the setter? When you call set count, React doesn't update the value right there. It just schedules a re-render. So if you check the value right after calling the setter in the same function, it's still the old one. The new value only shows up on the next render. This trips up a lot of people. So remember, setter mean please update later, not update now. What is lazy initialization in use state? If your initial state needs real work to calculate, like reading from local storage, don't call the function directly inside use state. Pass it as a function instead. React will only run it once on the first render. If you call it directly, it runs on every single render, even though the result is only used the first time. Small change, real performance win. When should you use functional updates? Use a functional update, set count of prep arrow, prep plus one. Anytime your new state depends on the old state. This matters most when you are calling the setter more than once in the same function or inside something delayed like a timeout. It's always give you the true latest value. One in dot, just use the function form, it's never wrong. How do you update arrays and objects safely in state? Never change a state arrays or object directly. Always make a new copy. For arrays, separate to add, filter to remove, map to update one item. For objects, separate and override the field you are changing. This creates a new reference, which is exactly how React knows something changed and needs to re-render. What is use effect in simple terms? So use effect let your component do things outside of just rendering, fetching data, updating the title, setting up a subscription. It runs after the screen updates, not during render. You can also return a cleaner function from it, which we will cover shortly, and that array at the end controls exactly when it runs. That's it. Next, what is dependency array? A dependency array tells what your effect actually depends on. React compares those values between renders. If nothing changed, it keep running the effect again. If even one value changed, it runs again. Simple rule: list everything your effect, read from the component. What happens with no dependency array at all? Skip the array completely and the effect runs after every single render, no matter what caused it. This is almost never what you want. It actually means duplicate API calls or wasted work. If you are leaving the array out, ask yourself what should actually trigger this effect. That becomes your dependency list. What happens with an empty dependency array? An empty array means the effect runs exactly once right after the first render. and never again. Its cleanup, if it has one, only runs when the component unmounts. This is the standard pattern for a one-time setup, a subscription, an interval, an event listener that doesn't depend on props or state. What causes an infinite loop in use effect? This happens uh, uh, when an effect updates the state value that also in its own dependency array, the effect runs update the state that triggers re-render the value changed, so the effect runs again forever. This fix is usually a function update inside an effect that only runs once, or rethinking whether this logic even needs to be an effect at all. How do you clean up an effect? Cleanup is just a function you return from inside your effect. React calls it automatically to undo whatever the effect setup, removing a listener, clearing a timer, closing a correction. Any effect that set up something outside React needs a matching cleanup, or you risk memory leaks. What exactly does the cleanup function run? Cleanup runs at two moments right before the effect runs again. So React can tear down the old version first, and when the component unmounts as the final tear down, each cleanup always matches the exact effect run it after it came from. So it cleans up exactly what the version set up. How do you handle API calls inside use effect? Fetch inside your effect and put whatever it depends on, like a user ID, in the dependency array. The tricky part is stale responses. If the user changes the input quickly, an old response could resolve after a newer one and override it with old data. A simple ignore flag, set the true in cleanup, protect again that. How do you cancel an in flight API request? Use the browser's AbortController, create one, pass its signal into fetch, and call abort in your cleanup function. This generally cancels the network request, not just its result, better than just ignoring a response, especially for something like search as you type. Why shouldn't the effect function itself be async? Use effect expects its function to return nothing, or a cleanup function mark that function unsync and always returns the promise instead. React can't use that as a cleanup. The fix keep the effect itself a normal function and define the separate async function inside it. Then call that. What are the most common mistakes with use effect? The three big ones: getting the dependency array wrong, for getting cleanup, and using an effect to compute a value that could just be calculated directly during render. So watch out for these three and you will avoid most use effect bugs. Use effect versus use layout effect. What's the difference? Use effect runs after the browser paints the screen. Use layout effect runs before that paint and blocks it until it's done. Default to use effect for almost everything. Only reach for a use layout effect when you need to measure something on screen and adjust it before the user sees and trigger. What is useRef and what does it give you? useRef gives you an object with one property, current, that sticks around across renders. Unlike state, changing it never triggers a re-render. It's a way to hold on to a value cross renders without React getting involved at all. useRef versus useState, what's the real difference? Simple test. Does the UI need to visually change when this value changes? If yes, use states. If it's just something you need to remember, like a timer ID, and it never needs to trigger screen update, user instead. Why doesn't updating ref current triggers a re-render? React only re-renders when you use a use state setter or when a parent re-renders. Changing ref dot current is just a normal JavaScript object mutation. Nothing tells React it happened. That's not a bug. It's the entire point of useRef and intentional escape hatch from re-rendering. Next question. How do you assess DOM elements using ref? Create a ref, pass it to an elements ref attribute in JSX, and React automatically sets its current property to that actual DOM node once it's mounted. From there, you can call the regular DOM methods on it directly, like focus. What are the practical use cases of useRef beyond the DOM? Beyond DOM assess, refs are great for holding a timer ID, tracking the previous value of something to compare against, and keeping a delayed callback, like a timeout, working with the latest value instead of an old state one. And that's a wrap for video 4. We covered use state, use effect, and use ref in depth. If this helped, drop a like and subscribe. In video 5, we will finish the hook series: use memo, use callback, react.memo, use reducer, use context, and newer hooks. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.